We've all heard creepy and scary ghost stories. In some stories, we hear about items that are cursed or possessed by the supernatural. And when it comes to mirrors, some stories speak of these as gateways into another world where ghostly spirits can make themselves appear to the living. Join us, grab someone's hand to hold on to, and turn down the lights as we take a look at the 5 scariest things people have seen in mirrors. Number 5. Spirit of the Dead. This creepy story happened with some young boy and his friends in the mountains. One winter day, he decided to invite some of his friends to go have fun in the mountains. So he took his truck and went up in the mountains with friends to tow each other on a tube across the snow. They dropped the tailgate in his old long bed Ford, and a few guys would sit in the back with one of those bazillion candlelight spotlights. When he was driving, it was fun to make really wide turns in the dark, so the person on the tube didn't have the luxury of headlights or taillights to somewhat illuminate their trail. The person in the bed of the truck with the spotlight would be funny and shine the light clear off to the side so it was pitch black if you were on the tube. One particular night, a snowstorm was rolling in, so they headed up to the usual spot. It was really dark that night. He was driving while a friend sat on the tube. The guy with the spotlight shined the light clear to the side of the truck, and as the boy checked his side mirror, he made eye contact with a guy dressed in jeans, a red plaid shirt, and an orange baseball cap. As they made eye contact, the boy lost all control of his body for about 5 seconds, but it felt like an eternity to him. He stopped the truck and turned it around and asked the friends if they saw him. They all said no, so he flipped the truck around and turned on the high beams, and they shined the spotlight all over. Then he got out and looked for footprints in the fresh snow and saw nothing. That night, they went back home, and the boy told his dad about the weird experience and didn't think anything of it. A week later on the news, the police reported finding a body in the area close to where they were and asked for any tips. His dad convinced him to call the police and tell them they were up in the area and saw that guy. He called, and an investigator came over to the house. He told an investigator that he saw the man 7 days ago, but as soon as he said that, the investigator asked him if he was sure about the date. When he said he was positive, the investigator showed him a picture of the body they found wearing the same red plaid shirt and orange baseball cap. Turned out, it was a man who suffered from some mental handicaps and committed suicide on the mountain 1 month before the boy saw him. Number 4. The Lady in the Mirror. This scary story happened to some guy while he was visiting family in California with his brother. While visiting, they decided to stop at one of the quaint hotels at the foothills that feature a restaurant and an old-style saloon. The hotel was simply called the Sierra Nevada House. He didn't know much about it at the time, except for the fact that it looked like a nice place to stop for the night, or so it would seem. After they had checked into the hotel, his brother and him went out to the bar for a couple of drinks. Besides them, there weren't many people. A couple at a table and one lone man sitting at the bar. Brothers approached the bartender, who seemed friendly enough, and she served them a couple beers. He noticed afterward that the bartender looked confused and seemed to be eyeing for something around the bar. He asked her what she was looking for, and with a matter-of-fact tone, she responded, "Isabella must have moved the table salt again." Naturally, he asked if Isabella was another employee, and the bartender replied that Isabella was the name of a spirit that frequently moved things around in the bar. He wasn't one to believe in supernatural forces. Up until this point in his life, he had never witnessed anything paranormal, so, he shrugged this off, thinking the bartender was a bit loopy or superstitious. After a couple of beers, the guy eventually had to use the bathroom, and while walking back, something happened that he couldn't quite explain. He paused in the hallway to look at himself in a long mirror, and in the corner of the mirror appeared a woman in a blue dress. He quickly turned around to find that he was the only one standing in the hallway. When he turned back to the mirror, a woman appeared again, only this time completely in black and white. He quickly jumped away from the mirror and looked up and down the hall. Nobody was there. He then tried to calm himself down and walked back to the bar, where he told his brother what had happened. The bartender chimed in that was indeed Isabella, who he saw in the mirror. He said that the spirit was once a member of the kitchen staff who caught her lover in bed with another woman in the hotel. Once confronted, she was pushed off the balcony by her lover and fell to her death. Ever since then, she's been haunting the staff and customers and moving items or appearing in the long mirror where the guy had seen her. After the bartender was out of earshot, he convinced his brother that they needed to find another hotel. Even while he was sitting at the bar, he had the feeling like someone was watching him. The brother, of course, called him crazy, but, they left nonetheless. It's your brother. So, next time you're vacationing in the California mountains, make sure you check the mirrors in the hotel you stay at, because you could see something besides yourself staring back at you. Number 3, the haunted mirror. This really terrifying story happened in Veracruz, Mexico a few years ago to some guy that one day purchased an old Victorian-sized wall mirror from an antique store, and the seller told him a few warnings before taking the mirror home. He said the mirror must always remain covered up during the night. So, once the guy got home with the mirror, he admired his reflection before covering it up. When dusk approached and his room started to get dark, he swore he heard someone knocking inside the covered mirror. So, like the saying goes, curiosity killed the cat. He uncovered the mirror, and what he stated next is kinda hard to believe. Bear with me. He said his reflection was the one knocking through the other side of the mirror with a twisted smile. He became so scared that he tried to run, but he found himself unable to move, as if he was paralyzed. He said his reflection tried to get out of the mirror as he struggled with it. According to him, he'd never experienced something so evil like this reflection before. While struggling, he said the reflection tried to get him inside this, quote, mirror world, but only succeeded halfway. He saw how it was inside the mirror. Everything was inverted, backwards. He was so scared, he started to pray and got the strength to wrestle with his reflection and got out of the mirror and his bedroom. He went running to his friend's White House and, yep, he's friends with the president. Nope, he went running to his friend's house, white as a sheet of paper, and told his friend what happened. They chatted all night since they didn't have the guts to go back, with good reason. Next morning, they went back to the guy's house and destroyed the mirror. They burned it, said a few prayers, and everything went back to normal. See, the sticking point for me in this story, why the hell is this guy selling a haunted mirror? What kind of warning is make sure you cover it up before night? Like, tell the dude what he's getting into. Alright, number 2, handprint from another world. This is a real-life ghost story that happened in 2005 to some woman whose name was Helen. Not important. Her husband had been dead for a year, but his handprint suddenly appeared on the mirror. The day it happened was the first anniversary of the death of her husband, Max Besler. That one is very important, remember that. I'm just kidding. They had been married for 4 years when he was found, at the age of 56, to have esophageal cancer. 6 months later, he was gone, devastating her and their 14-year-old son, Tanner. One day, while Max was still alive, him and his wife were in the kitchen and she asked him to find some way and let her know that there's something out there after he dies. It was kind of an odd conversation, but Max agreed he would try. A year after Max's death to the day, Helen and her son, Tanner, remember, were still working through their grief. They were sitting at a table in their yard in Sacramento, California. Helen then got up to go inside and bring them a snack. Before entering the kitchen, she stopped in the bathroom in the guest suite. That was when she saw the handprint. It hadn't been there when she'd gone in an hour earlier. Helen froze. Had someone played a trick on her? That was doubtful. Tanner and her would have seen or heard anyone. Then she called her son and asked him if he didn't do that. She knew that Tanner couldn't have made it because he'd been next to her the entire time. Still, she had asked him to hold his hand up next to it. It was much larger than his and shaped differently. This was no ordinary handprint. Seemingly made of a soft, white, powdery substance, it showed the entire bone structure as if it were an X-ray. Like most wives, Helen could recall precisely what her husband's hands looked like. The wide palm with the long, narrow fingers was reminiscent of the shape of Max's hands. And an even stranger thing happened that she didn't notice until she looked at the clock. The clock had stopped at 12:44, the exact time of Max's death. Number 1, Girl in the Mirror. This next and last ghostly story happened to a schoolboy. One day, he came home from a tiring day at school. His parents were overseas for a little vacation for a few days, so he was all alone at home. He was brushing his teeth while looking at himself in the mirror. It was a beautiful circular mirror with intricate designs on the glass. His mother bought it for $100 at an auction, and it had been in their house for a few years. The boy remembered how, as a little kid, his mother would tell him an old Chinese superstition. She warned him that he should never sleep facing a mirror because his soul would go into the mirror and live in it. A part of him dismissed her words as a chunk of nonsense, obviously, but another part of him believed her, and hence there were no mirrors in his bedroom. He proceeded to bend down and rinse his mouth. What he saw when he looked up again had him shell-shocked for the rest of his life. When he saw his face in the mirror, no, that's okay. It wasn't his face, that's the thing. It was the face of a little girl with really big white eyes and long black hair. Her lips were redder than the reddest of lips. Blood was dripping down from her chin and onto her white dress. She looked stunning. Her white eyes had an empty and gloomy look about them. It was almost as if she looked really sad. The boy wanted to reach out and touch her to tell her everything was okay and that nothing was going to happen to her. He felt like he was partially hypnotized. The lights in the bathroom went off. That snapped him out of his trance. He suddenly jumped by the surprise and shock of what he had just seen and experienced. He tried to move a step back, but it was no use. He tried to move the rest of his body, but couldn't. He made an attempt to scream, but nothing came out of his mouth. He could only watch the girl move 3 inches closer towards him in the mirror. And then she vanished, and the boy could see himself in the mirror. When the boy told his story to his parents, they quickly got rid of that mirror. Good parenting.
All right, Top Fivers, if you haven't already, make sure to visit our other channel, The Brilliant, for even more interesting list videos that'll blow your mind. Oh, but I'm warning you, the videos over on The Brilliant are extremely addicting to watch as well. There'll be a link in the description to the channel, so make sure to come and visit us. Or you can go to our latest video popping up on screen right now. Oh, and have you visited thefinestpost.com to enjoy the most amazing articles you will ever get to read?